Episode 361, An Unexpected Visitor. Don't worry about that, Miss Winslet. You can eat first. Besides, there are a lot of people in Walter's room now. That's why I brought you here. Mr. Foster will take you over later when there are fewer visitors, Lucas explained. Oh, I see, Jade replied, and she laughed as she remembered how upset she had been with Dario for not waking her that morning. He's arranged everything for me, and I felt cross with him, she thought ashamedly. Lucas then picked up a large, flat wooden box and placed it on the floor next to Jade. Miss Winslet, this is a gift prepared by Mr. Foster for you to give to his grandpa. Jade looked at the box with surprise. She had been nervous about finding an appropriate gift to give to Walter, and she had given up trying to think of what to get him, instead choosing to accept Dario's assurances that a gift wasn't necessary. My husband really does think of everything, she thought. That's why he told me that I didn't need to bring Walter a gift. I had no idea that he'd already brought something. She felt tears of joy beginning to form in her eyes, but she managed to hold them back, conscious that crying would ruin her makeup. Miss Winslet, please enjoy your food. I have a couple of things that I need to attend to, Lucas said as he left the room. Jade opened the box, expecting the gift to be something extremely valuable and beautiful. Instead, she found a framed tapestry. It depicted a mountain illuminated by the evening sun. As she looked closer, she noticed that most of it, except for some subdued green and blue sections, had been made from gold thread. I'd never imagined a tapestry of pure gold, she thought. I wonder how valuable it is. Dario would never give a gift to Walter that was anything other than exceptional. I'm sure he'll love it. She picked up the solid wood box and realized that it was very heavy. This is too large and heavy for me to carry, she thought. Dario wants me to give it to Walter, but I'll be too embarrassed to give him something that I can barely carry. Jade put the lid back on the box and looked longingly at the food on the table. It smelled delicious. She picked up her cutlery, ready to enjoy the familiar taste of her husband's cooking when a young woman entered the room. Dario, are you here? The unannounced stranger called. Jade put down the cutlery, wondering who the attractive woman was. She had long hair, a pretty face, and a nice figure. She looks familiar, Jade thought. Evelyn stood in the doorway. She had recovered well from her time in the hospital, and she had made an effort to look her best in the hope that she might see Dario at Walter's party. She had been unable to forget about her cousin and had been looking forward to the opportunity to get close to him. The Harper family and the Foster family had been close for a long time, and so they had naturally received invitations to Walter's birthday party. Evelyn's family had encouraged her not to go, for fear that she would end up becoming obsessed with Dario again, but Evelyn had been desperate to see him, and she had chosen to go anyway. When Evelyn saw a woman that she didn't know sitting at the table in Dario's room, she was shocked and angry. She was aware that no one except Dario was allowed up to the 6th floor, but as a relative of Walter's, she had been able to gain access to the upstairs area and had then proceeded up to Dario's living room. How did she get in here? Evelyn wondered. Has Dario been hiding a woman up here? She became extremely agitated, and she rushed toward Jade and said rudely, Hey, where did you come from? What do you think you're doing up here? Get out of Dario's room. She was extremely cross, and she was willing to defend what she saw as her right to claim Dario as her own. Jade looked at the woman, unsure of what to say or do. What have I done wrong? She wondered. This woman looks familiar, but I can't quite remember where I know her from. Then it came back to her. I remember where I saw her. It was when I went to pick my friend Faye up from the airport, she thought. She must be very close to Dario to come here to his private rooms. Jade stared at her, still unsure how to act, but her apparent indifference only served to make Evelyn angrier. Hey, I'm talking to you. Who the hell are you? Get out of here. You can't just wander around the house, you know, Evelyn shouted angrily. Just as Jade was about to explain what she was doing in Dario's room, a familiar but cold voice came from the doorway. She's my girlfriend, and she has every right to be here. The question is, what are you doing here? Who gave you permission to come up here? Get out. With a great sense of relief, Evelyn heard Dario's voice, and she turned her head and saw him standing just behind her. I haven't seen him for so long, she thought. I felt like I was going crazy without him. He's just as perfect as I remember him. He was wearing a handmade suit, which fitted his muscular frame perfectly. He looked dashingly handsome, but his expression was hostile as he looked at his cousin. Evelyn's joy at seeing the man she loved was short-lived. Her pretty eyes widened in disbelief. Did he just say, girlfriend? She thought. She looked back at the beautiful woman who was sitting in front of a plate of food. Dario, how can she be your girlfriend? You're lying to me, Evelyn said accusingly. Is he really saying that I don't have the right to come up here, but that woman does? She thought. Episode 362, Love Rival. Dario then turned to Jade. Evelyn watched as his expression, which had only moments before been hostile, became gentle and loving as he looked at the other woman. Why the hell is he looking at her like that? She thought furiously. I've waited for 20 years for him to look at me like that. How did that bitch put him under her spell? What has she done to deserve his love? Dario smiled at Jade intimately as he walked over and sat down next to her. He frowned when he saw that the food had remained untouched, and he said reproachfully, Why aren't you eating? Aren't you hungry? Jade looked at him incredulously. How could I eat when that woman came bursting in here? She thought, but said nothing. She glanced at Evelyn, who looked deeply hurt, and then at Dario, whose face remained impassive, as if the other woman wasn't there at all. Why was she so angry when she saw me? I'm sure I haven't done anything to offend her, Jade thought. Dario, who is that young woman? She asked. She's just a cousin, he replied, emphasizing the word cousin. Just a cousin? Thought Evelyn, the words sinking in and leaving her deeply sad. What does he mean by that? Do I mean so little to him? Am I really nothing more than a cousin? She thought. She looked at Jade with hatred, as if she were her arch-enemy. Then she turned her gaze to Dario and spoke to him in a pleading tone. Dario, I beg you, tell me the truth. You found this woman just to trick me, didn't you? Am I right? You did it to stop me from pestering you, didn't you? But I won't give up, Evelyn said with conviction. But when she saw Dario's cold expression, she felt that her heart was breaking. Tears began to stream down her face, and she cried until the makeup that she had spent hours on was completely ruined. Could she be the woman that Dario brought home to meet his family? She wondered, desperately searching for answers. Whether it's true or not, it has nothing to do with you. You have no right to come up here. Now, get out, Dario said in a harsh voice. He then put his arm around Jade. Evelyn suffered as she watched him be so gentle and loving with another woman, and she thought back bitterly to when he had once hugged her. Why are you so cruel, Dario? Why are you so cruel to me? I hate you, she screeched. She was wearing a long dress and high heels. She took a step back, accidentally stepped on the hem, and fell to the floor. Dario's eyes showed a moment of pity before he regained his indifferent expression, but he didn't move. Jade hurried over to help her. Miss, are you all right? She asked. She was leaning down to help her when Evelyn slapped her hand away. Get away from me, you tramp, she shouted. I don't need your sympathy. As she spoke, Evelyn clambered to her feet, feeling humiliated and hurt. Jade stayed close by, ready to steady her if she lost her balance again, and even followed her to the door as Evelyn rushed out with wild eyes. Dario looked on, amazed at the empathy that she showed to someone who had been so rude to her. She always thinks of others before herself, he thought. He walked over to his wife and held her wrist in his hand, looking at it to see if she'd been hurt where Evelyn had hit her. Did she hurt you? He asked softly. He saw a red mark on the back of her hand and he kissed it tenderly. It doesn't bother me much. Please, don't make a big fuss about it, she said, and pulled her hand away and hid it behind her back. Are you sure you're okay? He asked. I'm fine. That young lady looked like she hurt herself. I hope she's okay, she said. Let's take care of you first, Dario said, and he closed the door and locked it behind him to prevent anyone else from entering. After closing the door, Dario carried Jade over to the couch, and he was suddenly struck by how beautiful she looked. He bent down to kiss her on the lips, but she moved her head and avoided him. He looked disappointed and wondered if she was angry about Evelyn, but she looked at him and said seriously, Dario, you arranged for me to have a makeup artist do my makeup for over an hour. You can't mess it up now. That would be such a waste. You can kiss me after I take it off tonight, okay? Dario looked at her and smiled, and then he let out a burst of laughter. Jade rarely saw him laugh so heartedly, and she felt a little embarrassed. She sat up, narrowed her eyes and stared at him. Then, keen to change the subject, she asked, That woman just now, is she the cousin who sent you a message before? If she's Dario's cousin, how can she want to be with him? She wondered. Dario guessed what she was thinking and said, I'm not related to her by blood. She's my uncle's daughter from an earlier marriage. He then stood up, cut up a piece of chicken from her plate and said, Come and try some. It's one of your favorites. He lifted the fork and she opened her mouth carefully, wanting to avoid spoiling her lipstick. The delicious taste reawakened her hunger. She looked at her husband's handsome face and said with a smile, So, that cousin of yours is my love rival. Episode 363. Not enough time. Dario smiled at her and pinched her nose playfully. Then he said with mock seriousness, "Of course she's not the only love rival you have. There are many beautiful women who want to snare a rich and handsome man like me, but if nobody wanted to steal me, surely that would mean you had bad taste. Your husband is a very charming man, so you need to be careful." Dario continued to feed Jade as he spoke. The food was, as usual for Dario's cooking, delicious, and she would have happily eaten it all. But she was worried about bursting out of her dress, so she restrained herself and stopped before she felt full. Jade glared at him fiercely as she listened to his arrogant statement, and then she said, "If your heart isn't here, then no matter how careful I am, it's no use. If you go off with another woman, it means that you don't love me at all, and I won't chase after you." Dario raised his eyebrows and then leaned his body against hers. The warmth of his body and his familiar smell distracted her. "Oh, is that so?" he said. "Let me guess what you're thinking about." He gently stroked her on her cheeks, then her nose, and finally her lips. He raised his eyebrows and said, as if suddenly realizing something, "I know what you want. You want to ask me for a kiss, right? If you want to kiss me, just say so. You don't have to try and find an excuse," Jade replied as she rolled her eyes in mock frustration. "If a man can be snatched away, then it's not true love," she thought. "I should have known that when Bruce got with Ivana. I was foolish back then, but I won't be fooled again. Thankfully, after that scumbag Bruce, I met a man whom I can trust." "You're speaking as if you don't care. If you don't want me to kiss you, then don't, but I'll be sad," he said, with a gloomy look on his face. Is he really sad? She thought suspiciously. I thought he was more thick-skinned than that. She raised her eyes and stared at him intently. Then she put her arms around him and hugged him tightly. "I'm joking with you. Don't take me so seriously. Besides, Mr. Foster, you have such a strong willpower. I don't believe that any woman could steal you away. No, you're stuck with me. I'm the only woman for you. Other women aren't even going to get close to you," she said sweetly. "I believe in my husband. Evelyn must have fallen in love with Dario and been upset when he rejected her," she thought. That fits in with what David told me, that Dario had never shown any interest in women before he met me. "All right, since you want to get close to me, why don't we get close right now?" Dario said as he looked at her body suggestively. "She looks gorgeous," he thought. No wonder she attracted so much attention down there. Jade could tell what he was thinking, but she had other ideas. This is Walter's birthday banquet. He wants to have sex at his own grandfather's party, she thought incredulously. Maybe he's not as smart as I thought he was. "Get away from me, you pig. Are you shameless?" she said angrily, afraid that he would mess up the makeup that had taken so long to do. "Women like to say the opposite of what they really mean. The more you say you hate me, the more you love me, and the more you say you don't want to do it, the more you actually do want to," he said, smiling confidently. "However, the feast is about to begin downstairs, and we don't really have enough time to do what I have in mind," he added regretfully. From the other side of the locked door came the sound of male voices. "I can't take it anymore. I'm fed up with seeing other couples all happy while I'm single. He doesn't care about me. He doesn't care about how I feel at all," said a familiar voice. Jade was surprised and immediately wriggled out of Dario's arms as she looked toward the door. Why would there be anyone outside? That voice sounded like David's, she thought, as she sat upright. Dario's loving expression turned cold as he stared at the door, as if it had wronged him in some way. "The more you see other couples together, the more you'll get used to it," Lucas said in a frustrated tone. "Eventually, you'll be immune to it and it won't bother you at all." Lucas had become accustomed to seeing Dario and Jade together and prided himself on remaining professional regardless of what was going on around him. David, on the other hand, was unsettled that his usually cold and distant friend had become so obviously besotted with a woman and that he was often affectionate with her in front of him. "He's not the man he used to be," David thought miserably. "I feel like I don't know him anymore. There must be something very special about Jade to make him behave that way. Lucas, I'm fed up with watching other couples being all lovey-dovey in front of me. Look, you don't have a girlfriend, and neither do I, so maybe we should just make do with each other," David said as he leaned forward to hug Lucas. Lucas dodged out of the way, and David stumbled into the door and banged his face. "No, thank you. I'm not interested in men," Lucas replied, disdainfully. Episode 364. How far could jealousy take? Jade and Dario looked at each other and both sighed, frustrated at the interruption. Jade blushed and felt too embarrassed to continue snuggling up together while David and Lucas were so close. Dario stepped forward and unlocked and opened the door in a fluid motion. David, who was leaning against the door, stumbled into the room. Dario stepped aside to avoid him, and David fell to the floor with a thud. "Oh!" he shouted. David looked at his friend, expecting him to help him up, and said, "Where's your conscience? Why don't you help me up? I just banged my face on your door, and now I've fallen over. Not that you care." Dario remained still and looked at his friend with open hostility. Seeing that he wasn't going to help him up, David scrambled to his feet and walked over to a nearby mirror on the wall. He looked at his reflection anxiously, checking for any signs of bruising. "What are you two doing here?" Dario asked coldly, focusing his gaze on Lucas. "I told Lucas to make sure no one disturbed us, and he's let Evelyn and now David up here. Does he not want his job anymore?" Dario thought. "Hey, don't blame Lucas. I was the one who wanted to come up here. I needed to escape from the baying women down there," David said, ruffling his hair in frustration. "I'm just too handsome. They won't leave me alone." In New York, the Swan family was almost as renowned as the Foster family. David, as a handsome young man, was very much sought after by young socialite women, many of whom were at the party. From the moment he had arrived, he had been surrounded by a horde of women desperate to get his attention. Even worse, from David's point of view, were the mothers who wanted him to get to know their daughters. David only had eyes for Monica, and he had spent his time at the party trying unsuccessfully to avoid all the unwanted female attention. To make matters even worse, Monica, who was still resolutely refusing David's advances, hadn't even come to the party. "It's going to be even worse being up here," David thought. "I may as well be down there with those women. Even that would be better than watching these two lovebirds together." With the two other men in the room, Jade sat on the couch feeling increasingly awkward, especially after overhearing what David had said. David noticed the hostile look that Dario was giving him, and he realized that he was intruding on the young couple. "Hey, just pretend that I'm not here. You guys carry on with whatever you were doing, okay? I won't watch," David said, as he covered his eyes with his hands. Jade blushed as David spoke. She wanted to leave, but Dario walked over and sat down next to her, seemingly able to ignore the presence of the two men. Jade was mortified as he picked her up and sat her on his lap, as if they were the only two people in the room. "Dario, what are you doing? Let go of me," she protested. She glared at him and struggled to extricate herself from his embrace, but the more she wriggled, the tighter he hugged her, and she was unable to break free. Although Jade knew both David and Lucas well, she felt uncomfortable showing affection to her husband in front of them, especially in broad daylight. "Stop trying to get away, or I'll kiss you in front of them," Dario said domineeringly, staring into her eyes. Jade knew from experience that her husband had a habit of following through with such threats, so he covered her face with her hand shyly and pretended not to be there. "I don't know whether I like it or not that he's so thick-skinned," she thought. Dario found it easy to pretend that Lucas and David weren't there, and he continued flirting relentlessly with his wife. He fed her more of her food and from time to time kissed her on the forehead, remaining careful not to ruin her makeup. Jade did her best to act as if there was no one else present, but she continued to feel embarrassed. "I don't think there's anything in the world that could embarrass him," she thought. Dario moved his hand playfully around her body, but she patted his hand away and glared at him in an attempt to get him to control himself. "If he doesn't stop soon, I'm going to die of shame," she thought. David was feeling increasingly uncomfortable. "I just want to hide away," he thought. "I can't take it anymore. Dario really doesn't care about how it makes me feel to watch him and Jade together like that." Dario's frustration got the better of him, and he pulled Lucas by the arm and walked away toward the staircase. "Fine, Dario, I'll go downstairs and find 10 beautiful women, and then we'll see how you like watching someone else frolicking around in front of you," he said grumpily. "They're not interested in you. It's the Swan family name they want," Lucas said contemptuously. David looked at him bitterly, a look of disbelief on his face. "Lucas, you're a liar, and bad things happen to people who lie," David replied. Lucas met his gaze while they were walking and said, "It certainly seems like Mr. Foster has taken a liking to Miss Winslet." "I don't need you to tell me that. Any fool can see that. I'm not blind," David retorted. He then adopted an unusually serious tone. "What about Miss Gray? He looked for her for 5 years, and now that he's finally found her, he doesn't want anything to do with her. What's going on?" "Miss Gray risked her own life to save Mr. Foster's 5 years ago. He feels gratitude for Miss Gray, but he feels love for Miss Winslet. They're a very different emotion," Lucas explained as if talking to a child. Lucas felt guilty about Miranda, and his mind flashed back to a vision of her stubborn face when she had been standing in her tiny apartment. Jade let out a sigh of relief as she heard the two men's voices trail into the distance, and then she looked at Dario reproachfully. "Mr. Foster, can you be a little more careful who you let in next time?" Episode 365. Meeting for the first time. Dario raised his eyebrows and looked at her seriously. "Okay, I'll be more careful next time," he said. His quick agreement surprised Jade, but then he added, "Looks like you think that we weren't intimate enough for them. Don't worry, next time I'll do better. They'll all wish that they were us." "That's not what I meant," Jade said, glaring at him. "Would you stop twisting my words?" "All right, let's go up to see my grandfather," Dario said. He stopped smiling, and when he said the word grandfather, his face furrowed with concern. "Okay," Jade said, and nodded reluctantly. Dario picked up the gift box in one hand and grasped her hand with the other. He led her to Walter's room on the second floor. Most of the people who had come to visit Walter had already moved down to the main hall, and now his room was quiet. Dario had arranged to bring her at this time, knowing that most of the guests would be gone. Jade only saw Dario's parents, sister, and grandmother in the room when they entered. When they saw Jade, they acknowledged her politely. There were no outsiders, so she relaxed a little. But then she noticed Evelyn staring at her with jealousy from the corner. Feeling uncomfortable, Jade tried to pull her hand from his, but Dario held on firmly, deliberately demonstrating their relationship. As Evelyn shot daggers from her eyes, Jade cursed Dario for ignoring her feelings. Walter was awake, and he seemed more clear-headed than he'd been during Dario's previous visits. He was in a good mood because of his birthday party. After all, this was his day. Diane had just helped him out of bed, ready to escort him to the main hall to greet his guests. When Walter saw Dario escorting a beautiful young woman, he stopped short and looked at them in surprise. Because Evelyn was there, the atmosphere felt awkward. Dario's parents didn't know if they should explain to Walter who Jade really was.
"So, who is this that my grandson is bringing me to see?"
Walter asked as he stared at them intently. When he saw them holding hands, his aged eyes brightened. The others in the room were embarrassed and didn't know what to say. Then Dario's grandmother Isabel appeared. She firmly planted her walking stick in front of her and said solemnly, "Walter, this is the famous actress Jade Winslet. Miss Winslet especially wanted to wish you a happy birthday." When Isabel referred to her as the famous actress, Jade's heart trembled. Is Dario's grandmother still unable to accept me? She thought. Apparently, Isabel still resented the fact that she had a career. She had deliberately told Walter that she was an actress and avoided mentioning that she was Dario's girlfriend. Clearly, she didn't want his grandfather to know what kind of relationship they had. Noticing that this made Jade uncomfortable, Dario held her hand even more tightly, offering his support. His face had remained calm and composed when he heard his grandmother introduce Jade. Now, he deliberately wrapped his arms around her and told his grandfather, "Jade is not only a famous actress, but she's also my girlfriend. Don't you think calling her Miss Winslet is a little too formal? Granny doesn't need to be so polite. From now on, you can just call her Jade, or you can call her Sweetheart like I do." Sweetheart? Did he really just refer to her so intimately in front of them all? Evelyn thought with a frown. Apparently, Dario was serious about her. Evelyn watched the expressions of the other family members. She was astonished to discover that, other than his grandfather, the others didn't seem to be surprised. It was as if they had already known about Jade. Looking at Sharon in disbelief, she said agitatedly, "Tell me, did you know about this? Is she really his girlfriend? Why didn't you tell me earlier?" "Evelyn, it's not like that. We only found out when he brought Jade home a few days ago," Sharon explained with some difficulty. "Jade, you are all already on a first-name basis with her," Evelyn thought. "What about me? What am I?" The last time Jade had visited the house, Walter had still been in a coma, so he didn't know the details of what had happened. He took a closer look at Jade. Then he noticed the bracelet on her arm and seemed surprised. Turning to Sharon happily, he said,
"I see that you've already given her the family bracelet. I can't believe no one bothered to tell me that I have a future granddaughter-in-law."
Evelyn fumed as she heard this. She'd heard rumours about the heirloom bracelet and had seen it once on Sharon's arm. That was when she had learned that the bracelet was passed down through the foster family and was always given to the newest foster wife. Her expression hardened as she carefully studied the bracelet on Jade's wrist. She hadn't expected that Sharon had already passed it on to her. She couldn't believe that Dario's mother had accepted her so easily. After all, Evelyn was the woman Dario had grown up with and the one his mother had wanted him to marry. What? How did this happen? Evelyn thought in confusion. She looked at Sharon angrily and said, "How could you do this to me? Why did you lie? You said you wanted me to become your daughter-in-law. Didn't you tell me you could convince Dario? How did this happen? All of you Fosters have been lying to me." Episode 366. She wears the bracelet. Sharon felt shame in the face of Evelyn's anger. When Dario had brought Jade home, she had felt most sorry for Evelyn, who was a very sweet girl to her. She had always been so kind and supportive. While Sharon had done her best to try to convince Dario that Evelyn would be a good match, she respected his choice. She couldn't tear him and Jade apart for Evelyn's sake. When Dario had just been playing around, she was willing to help her. But now, he was serious about this girl. She knew that Dario had given Jade the diamond ring he had specifically designed for the woman he would marry. And yes, Jade was wearing the family bracelet that she had bestowed upon her at the Adele Barraque press conference. Since that had been witnessed by so many in the media, how could their family not acknowledge Jade's existence? "Evelyn, calm down. I can explain. Come with me," Sharon said gently, as she tried to usher her from the room. Yes, Evelyn. You go down and chat with Sharon. Let her explain things to you," Walter urged. He had never liked Evelyn. He felt that she was shrewd and would do anything to achieve her goals. He had not wanted her as his granddaughter-in-law. Besides, she and his grandson were cousins. It wouldn't be appropriate. As for Jade, she was quite pleasing to his eyes. She looked delicate, kind, pretty, and in love. No one had known she was with his grandson. Now Walter wanted to hear the stories and chat with his future granddaughter-in-law, so he really didn't want Evelyn around. She was now an outsider to the family. Evelyn saw Walter giving Jade an appreciative look, and this made her furious. Did their entire family now like that woman? She felt as if she'd been stabbed in the heart. She couldn't breathe. "The Fosters are cold and heartless," she thought. "Why are you all treating me like this? I hate you all!" Evelyn screamed at the top of her lungs, giving Dario a complicated look. Then she pulled up her dress so that she wouldn't trip as she ran from the room. "Evelyn, be careful. You just got out of the hospital," Sharon cried. She ran after her, afraid that something would happen to her. She was even more afraid that she might try to cause trouble. Since it was Walter's birthday, she didn't want any problems. The others scurried out behind them, hoping to prevent a ruckus. "Just got out of the hospital?" thought Jade in surprise. Is that why Dario had been going back and forth to a hospital in New York? She watched Evelyn leave. She could tell that she really liked Dario, and it was obvious that Sharon would have preferred her to be Dario's wife. The family obviously thought highly of her. Dario held her hand tightly. He could feel her palms sweating and see the anxiety in her eyes. He felt sorry for her. He couldn't make everyone like her, no matter how hard he tried. He regretted that the situation was making Jade unhappy. Walter, however, was happy that they had left. "Come, let me have a good look at you," he said kindly to Jade. Then he glared fiercely at Dario and said, "Well, you should be ashamed. You found a future wife, but you didn't bring her to me. This is too much." He looked at the young couple fondly. Since they had arrived, he felt so much better. His mind also felt sharper. It seemed like his wish would be fulfilled before he died. Dario gently pushed Jade toward Walter, and she said shyly, "Hello." He looked her up and down and was satisfied. His old face radiated happiness. Good, he said to Dario. "You are now a worthy grandson. You're lucky to have found such a beautiful woman. You have excellent taste." Because Dario's grandmother did not like her very much, Jade had been worried about meeting his grandfather. Would he feel the same way? She hadn't expected his grandfather to be so easy to talk to and so full of compliments. She finally relaxed. Every time Dario had mentioned his grandfather, he had looked worried. She could tell that they were very close. So when she realized that Walter approved of her, she was very happy. And as for Dario's grandmother, she would just have to work harder on that. She wanted everyone in the family to accept her. "Oh, I don't think you understand. I'm the one who got lucky when I found Dario," Jade said with a smile.
You? How could that be? You're so lovely. He's lucky that you kept him. In the last 30 years, no one has been able to make this boy behave, yet it seems you've gained control of him. Tell me, how did you do it? Apparently, you have a lot to teach me,"
Walter said jokingly. Jade hadn't expected him to be such a funny old man. She felt no difference in age and no pressure when she talked to him. He was friendly and made her feel comfortable. She was so glad that he had accepted her. Walter didn't know how Jade and Dario had met or what kind of relationship they had, but since she was already wearing the family bracelet, he felt there was no need for him to ask. It was clear that Dario had settled on this woman. Otherwise, Sharon would not have handed over the Foster's heirloom bracelet. Episode 367. Our Birthday Gift to You. Walter had never known his grandson to show such affection to any woman, so he knew Dario must have genuine feelings for Jade. Dario had never wanted a woman by his side. This had worried Walter. He had thought that he would never have the chance to hold a great-grandchild in his arms, but now he had hope. He thought that any woman who could conquer Dario must be very clever. Jade laughed as she listened to Walter explain this. She didn't believe she had conquered the handsome and rich Dario. She just accidentally overwhelmed him on a night when she was drunk. She had no idea that the night would change her whole life. What surprised Jade even more was that Walter didn't care that she didn't come from a rich family. He was even more supportive of her profession. He told her that he had seen her on TV and enjoyed watching her series. They discussed how difficult it was to be an actress. Walter expressed his admiration for the way she faced those challenges. This embarrassed her. "Oh, please, don't be impressed with that. I feel like I haven't accomplished anything when I think how you built the Foster Empire. I also heard you were a soldier when you were younger. You've done so many amazing things in your lifetime. I hate to say it, but you may be more impressive than my Dario. I'm wondering if you were more handsome than him when you were younger as well," she teased. Although Walter was older, he was still sharp of mind and fearless. It was obvious that he had developed these qualities when he was young. Dario had told her enough about his grandfather and his adventures that she shared his admiration of the old man. What she said now was not flattery. It came from the bottom of her heart. Walter knew how to read people. He had a lifetime of success based on knowing whether the person opposite him was genuine or phony. When he heard the sincerity in Jade's voice, he was even more pleased with Dario's choice.
"The girl is quite the charmer,"
he told Dario, looking at him reproachfully.
"I like her. Why didn't you bring her to see me earlier?"
Then his gaze fell on the large box Dario had brought in. He said grudgingly,
"Well, boy, what's that you brought? Are you keeping it for yourself? Don't you know that your grandfather is celebrating his 80th birthday today?" "Of course I know. This is Jade's gift to you. Go on and open it," Dario told him. He was worried that his grandfather had been standing for too long and ushered him back to his bed. When Walter was settled on the bed, Dario placed the box next to him, and Walter impatiently opened it. Jade felt a little embarrassed that Dario had said the gift was from her, since he had selected it himself. However, she didn't dare tell Walter the truth. Walter opened the box and saw that it was an exquisite tapestry of a mountain. He beamed with joy. Walter had received a lot of presents that day. Most of them had been very expensive. Some were even priceless. However, he felt this was the best gift. He'd always thought that mountains best represented the course of his life. "Thank you, Jade. This is perfect. How did you know about my obsession with mountains?" "It seems that my future granddaughter-in-law has good taste," he thought.
Jade felt ashamed when Walter said that. She knew that she had nothing to do with choosing his gift. She took a step forward and said, "Actually, I didn't..." She was just about to confess when Dario said loudly, "Grandfather, she chose this a month ago. You must find a place to display it." He pointed to an empty space on the wall.
Yes, let's hang it right away,"
Walter said with enthusiasm. He called for the butler and had it hung on the wall directly across from his bed so he could gaze at it. The butler was impressed with the gift. He mentioned that whoever had selected the tapestry knew something about art and added that the price would only increase in value over the years. Walter replied angrily,
"Even if it increases by 100 times, I will never sell it. It's a gift from my granddaughter-in-law."
Jade lowered her head shyly. Dario had been holding her hand tightly, and his gaze had never left her. She knew that he had told his grandfather that she had selected the present, so he would be impressed with her. Dario was such a good man. He was working so hard to make sure the family accepted her.
"What about your gift, my boy? You didn't care enough about me to bring a gift, but your girlfriend did?"
Walter said to Dario, as if scolding him, but his eyes were smiling.
"Grandpa, are you kidding? This is my gift right here,"
Dario said as he patted Jade's shoulders. Walter laughed and clapped his hands.
"Yes, my boy, she is an excellent gift. I couldn't ask for more. And look at this tapestry. It looks so nice in my room. Well done, Jade. No wonder this grandson of mine waited so long to bring a girl home. He'd been waiting for you to appear all this time."
"No, you're wrong," Jade said quietly. "I've been waiting my whole life for Dario." Episode 368. Leave Us Alone. Dario smiled as he listened to his grandfather praise Jade. He was delighted that Walter approved of his choice. Walter was equally delighted to see that his grandson had finally grown up.
"Tell me, boy, when is the wedding? The sooner that happens, the sooner I'll be able to hold my great-grandson,"
he said excitedly. As his future granddaughter was already there, it seemed that his great-grandson was not far away. Jade felt awkward when he spoke of children. It was not that she didn't want kids, but she needed more time. She didn't know if his grandfather could wait much longer, however.
"We're going to wait a while before we have a wedding. I want Jade to get to know the family first. Once you get better, we'll discuss when to have children,"
Dario said evasively, but he looked guilty. Jade was surprised. She hadn't really thought about a wedding. Once they had the marriage certificate, she had stopped considering it. But part of her did want a wedding. Wasn't it every girl's dream to wear a beautiful white dress and have a romantic ceremony? She didn't think Dario cared about that sort of thing, but now he was talking about a big wedding with his family. It was so sweet. Walter glared at Dario fiercely, looking like an angry little boy.
"Don't try to fool me. I know you're trying to bribe me to get better, but you can't guarantee how long I'll be around. You should hurry to make sure I have a chance to hug my great-grandchild," he said. "We'll see when the time comes, but I'm not worried. Seeing how feisty you are today, I fully expect you to live to 100 just to annoy us," Dario teased. "Is that any way to speak to your elders?" Walter chastised him. "Get out. I want to speak to Jade alone."
Dario's eyes darkened. He had a feeling he knew what his grandfather wanted to say, and he was concerned. But Jade didn't think much about it. After all, his grandfather was not like his grandmother. His grandfather had already accepted her, and she enjoyed him. She wasn't worried about what he might say when they were alone. Just as Dario was about to refuse, his phone rang. He wasn't going to answer it, but then he saw who it was. He whispered something in Jade's ear and went out into the hall to take the call. He had told her that if his grandfather said anything that made her uncomfortable, she could just say that she hadn't heard him. She didn't have to answer him. Jade wondered why Dario was willing to let her be so rude. Shouldn't she be respectful? But when she heard the question Walter asked, she was stunned. She understood why Dario had warned her. Once Dario had left, Walter said, "My dear, come sit." He pointed at the chair by the bed. "I have one quick question for you. Have you done it with my grandson?" Jade was dumbstruck. Her face turned bright red. But as she thought about it, she realized she must have misunderstood. There was no way an 80-year-old man would ask her that. He must have meant something else. Looking embarrassed, she asked, "I'm sorry, what do you mean?" Her distress didn't seem to bother Walter. After all, she was his future granddaughter-in-law. What was wrong with asking? "Oh, come on now," he said. "Don't play dumb with me. You know what I'm talking about. Don't look at me like I'm just an old man. I'm very open-minded. I want to know so I can see how likely it is that I'll actually have a great-grandchild before I die." Jade tried to answer, but the words dried up in her mouth. She didn't know what to say. Then she decided to take Dario's advice and not reply. Walter saw her determination and bit his lower lip as he contemplated her. Then he laid back on the bed and began to cough on purpose. He suddenly looked haggard and weak. His acting skills were as good as Jade's.
"Jade, dear,"
he coughed weakly.
"you know that my illness is very serious. I have one foot in the grave already."
"Oh, that's just nonsense," she told him. She could tell what he was up to. After all, she knew about acting. She was both angry and amused, but the question still hung between them. Walter became serious and said,
"Don't let the way I am today fool you. I'm the one who knows my illness best. I may not have long, but that's okay, because my life has been full. The only regret I would have would be if I never got to see a great-grandchild. I've never begged anyone for anything in my life, but I'm begging you to convince Dario to get married soon, so you can give me a great-grandchild. Then I can die happy."
Walter spoke sincerely, and his eyes were filled with hope. How could Jade not be moved by that? Besides, he was such a kind person. Jade only had one grandmother who had doted on her when she was a child. Now, she had a new grandparent to love her. Thinking of her own grandmother, she wondered if she was feeling the same way as Walter. She must also hope to see her own great-grandchildren. She patted Walter's hand. "It will be fine. You will get better, and I promise you'll get to meet our child. Don't worry, we won't let you down," she said, eyes brimming with tears.
"Okay, I believe you,"
Walter said with relief. He could see that she was sincere, and it appeared that she really loved his grandson. Otherwise, she wouldn't have made that promise. It was then that Dario came back into the room after finishing his phone call. David entered with him, and the atmosphere lightened. Episode 369. No, you're jealous.
"Grandpa Foster, here I am,"
David said as he put down the gift in his hand.
"Oh, my. Miss Winslet, are you crying? Come on. This is a birthday celebration. I didn't realize crying would be involved. Here, let me try to join in."
He even blinked his eyes quickly, trying to squeeze out tears. He pretended to be emotional, which made Walter laugh. Then, Jade couldn't help but laugh with them. Dario hurried forward and gently wiped Jade's tears with his warm fingers. He held her in his arms. Then, he raised his eyebrows at Walter and asked with annoyance,
"What did you say to upset her?"
Walter knew he'd been caught, but he wasn't ashamed. He stared back at Dario righteously. Jade felt that the two of them were exactly the same.
"My boy, she's a good girl. She makes me very happy,"
Walter said earnestly before calling Jade over.
"Come here, my dear. Let me promise you something. In the future, if this boy doesn't behave, you just tell me, and I'll help you teach him a lesson."
Before Jade could say anything, David interjected.
Grandpa Foster, put your mind at ease. Dario would never mistreat her. He treats her like a queen, and every day it's always hug, hug, kiss, kiss in front of all of us. If you're so jealous, go find a girl for yourself,"
Walter answered, grinning at David.
"Wow, Jade, you're impressive. It's the first time you've met Grandpa Foster, and you've already won him over. My congratulations,"
David said, looking at Jade with admiration. He knew Walter was not an easy man to impress.
"Grandpa, don't worry. I'll never let anyone bother your granddaughter-in-law,"
Dario promised as he cuddled Jade. Jade was a little uncomfortable being so intimate in front of the old man, and she kept trying to wriggle out of Dario's embrace. But Walter didn't care. He smirked and said, To be young."
Turning to David, he said, "Young man, help me downstairs so I can take a look. It's my 80th birthday party after all. If I don't make an appearance, what's the point?"
David looked at Dario and Jade and said,
"Hey, you two. It's fine when you show public displays of affection in front of me, but how can you do such a thing to an old man? Come along, Grandpa Foster. We don't need to put up with this." "Young David, I think you're jealous of our Dario. You need to find a beautiful girlfriend for yourself,"
Walter said, teasing him again.
You can't say that. I think perhaps you are the one who's jealous,"
David responded.
"My dear David, I have the body and the handsome face. I could find such a woman if I wanted. I just haven't bothered,"
Walter shot back.
"Now you're just bragging,"
said David. He helped Walter get up from the bed, and the two of them continued this way as they slowly headed downstairs. Jade couldn't help but laugh. They really were two treasures. After that, Jade and Dario were alone in the room. Dario pulled her closer now that there was no one to disturb them. Don't they need you downstairs? Jade asked him. Dario shrugged indifferently. What's the rush? There are so many people down there, they won't miss me. Besides, the banquet hasn't started. I'd prefer to stay here and spend some time with you. His parents were overseeing the banquet. They didn't need him. Besides, he didn't want to go down and be surrounded by a group of women. More importantly, he was avoiding Evelyn. If she dared to say anything to hurt Jade, he would lash out at her, regardless of how close their families were. Jade blinked slowly and said, Then why are the two of us just standing here? What is it that you want to do? We'd have to be quick. Dario raised his eyebrows suggestively and pinched her bottom. Jade gave a pretend cry of outrage and slapped his hand away. Are you serious? This is your grandfather's room, she said angrily. Dario smiled and gently stroked her hair. His deep voice sounded sexy and charming when he said, Sweetheart, you're so beautiful today that it's almost unbearable. Jade blushed, knowing that he meant it. The clothes she wore enhanced her graceful figure, and she was like a pretty little flower attracting butterflies. Dario had noticed how the guests had gravitated toward her when she had arrived at the party. What, can't you bear? She asked. I can't resist you. I want to do bad things with you, he said with a bewitching smile. He tried to kiss her, but she kept dodging away. Dario smiled helplessly and said, Don't worry, I brought your makeup kit. We can fix your lipstick once I'm done messing it up. Then he put his hand behind her neck and kissed her deeply. His wife was so irresistible that day. As they kissed passionately, immersed in their own world, they failed to notice the cold, sad eyes staring at them from the doorway. Evelyn sank to the ground in despair. She felt as if a dagger had been plunged into her heart. Sharon and Diane had been trying to comfort her. Sharon had said that she would still like to treat her as her own daughter. Diane had also promised to treat her like a sister. Since she couldn't be the actual daughter-in-law of the foster family, they had vowed to find a better man for her. Episode 370. Furtive Kisses. Evelyn gradually calmed down, but she still couldn't let go of her feelings for Dario. She felt depressed, and she didn't want to stay there anymore. She wanted to go home, even if that meant missing Walter's birthday. How is it possible that the man I've loved for more than 20 years won't even look at me? She thought. But he kisses a woman he only just met with such gentleness and love. Could our 2 decades of friendship be so easily trumped by a relationship of just a few months? I can't believe it. She didn't try to interfere, but just walked away like a zombie, her face lined with despair. Watching Dario and Jade kiss, her eyes filled with hatred and jealousy. Dario leaned in close to Jade's ear and whispered, We've got 3 hours until the banquet begins. Is that enough time for us to get up to mischief? Jade rolled her eyes. He really does manage to make everything about sex, she thought. Not now, she said. Go and take things in hand yourself if you're so desperate. Dario scooped her into his arms and was about to carry her to his room when his phone rang. He groaned and put her down, looked at the name on the screen and silenced the phone. Go on downstairs then. I'll catch up after I've dealt with this. Sure, Jade said, glad to escape. How embarrassing it would be if anyone guessed we'd snuck off to have sex in Dario's grandfather's house, she thought. Dario seemed to have read her mind. He deliberately leaned close to her ear and bit her delicate earlobe. He said, We'll save it for tonight. We don't have enough time now anyway. Jade responded shyly. Yes, later, then. Dario was surprised that she didn't reject the idea. Her shy response intoxicated him. He pushed her against the wall and kissed her hard. Jade responded with everything she had. Just one little word from me causes him to lose control like this, she thought in amazement. I can't wait for tonight. Maybe I'll even conceive. I'd love to get pregnant soon. It would make Walter so happy. Dario reluctantly pulled away. How I wish I could set all my business concerns aside and just be with her, he thought. Jade shoved him in the chest. All right, no more kisses. There'll be plenty of time for that tonight. If you have things to do, go and do them. He raised his eyebrows. She becomes more adorable every day, he thought. Jade was becoming more assertive, and it made her even more irresistible. All right, he said, but he remained leaning against her, lightly blowing on her ear until she laughed at the ticklish sensation. But his phone kept ringing and undermining the intimacy of the moment. Hurry up and answer, Jade told him. They'll be getting impatient. She glanced around and was glad to see that the second floor was still deserted. It would be so awkward if someone came along and saw us like this, she thought. Dario looked into her lively eyes and asked her, "Don't you want to know what I'm going to do?" Jade was very curious, but she trusted him to tell her if she needed to know. With a charming smile, she said, "I don't need to ask. I know that no matter what you do, it's for my own good. If you don't want to tell me, then it's useless for me to ask you." This brought a smile to Dario's eyes. She knew him so well. He lifted her hand and kissed the back of it. "I don't know what I did to get lucky enough to have a wife like you. My love for you already feels like it's in my bones, and it keeps getting stronger. Is it possible that in the future, I'll somehow love you even more?" "Of course. I want you to love me every day and pamper me every night." Jade pinched his nose. "Okay, I promise I'll love you more each day and sex you up even more each night." Jade was speechless. How has he brought it back to sex again? She thought. She pouted and pushed him toward the stairs. "Hurry up and leave, so that I can come back hurrying." Dario finished for her, reluctantly pulling away and trotting down the stairs. Not wanting to follow him straight down, Jade waited a minute. When she came down, she was surprised to find that the hall was even more lively than before. Sharon and Donald were in the foyer welcoming guests. Dario's mother looked beautiful, young enough to be his sister. Walter had been a genius at business in his youth. Even though he was now retired, he still had the power to swallow up major enterprises if he wished. He could even influence the economy of whole countries. So inevitably, his birthday celebration had attracted its share of reporters. What was rare was that Walter was in such good spirits that day. He had a smile on his face and was very polite to the journalists, answering all their questions. When Jade came down, the reporters didn't surround her because Diane had read them the riot act and warned them to be on their best behaviour. And for that night, Walter the aging tycoon was the centre of attention. Episode 371. A Meeting in the Woods. Jade kept a low profile and no one tried to pester her. She still wasn't used to these types of high society events. It was still early, so she decided to walk around the villa's garden for a while. Below the lawn, there was a small patch of woodland leading down to a river. It was peaceful and deserted as Jade wandered through the trees. She found a cute wooden gazebo and sat on a bench, listening to the murmuring of the water. It was very quiet, as if she had travelled back in time to a simpler age. Sitting there enjoying the fresh air and the beautiful scenery in front of her, her entire body relaxed. "It's like being in paradise," she thought with surprise. "Miss Winslet, may I talk to you?" Jade looked behind her and was stunned to find the woman who had broken into Dario's living room earlier. She gave Evelyn a polite smile. "May I ask what this is about?" Evelyn bit her lower lip. Her hair was messy and her eyes were red and puffy. Clearly she'd been crying and now she looked angry. "How long have you known Dario?" Evelyn clasped her hands tightly and pretended to be calm. Only she knew how fast her heart was beating. "Why did I lose to this woman?" she wondered. Jade knew that Evelyn liked Dario and was hostile toward her, but she wasn't going to lie. "We met 2 months ago." "I don't believe it. How could you have only known him for 2 months? This is ridiculous," Evelyn thought. "I've been by his side for 20 years and never won his affection." The hatred in her eyes became even more intense. "Just how close is your relationship?" she asked. "I just saw you kissing. What else have you done?" The thought of them in bed together made her want to tear Jade limb from limb. Jade was shocked to be sought out by this virtual stranger and asked such a personal question. "What I do with Dario is none of your business." Seeing that she did not deny it, Evelyn felt a stabbing pain in her heart again. She cried, "Dario, why are you doing this to me?" Pointing at Jade, she said, "This is all your fault. You stole him from me. I can't believe you're sleeping together." But she did believe it. How could she not after seeing them together? "I took off all of my clothes in front of Dario and he barely spared me a glance," she thought. "But this woman won him over so easily. I can't accept this." Seeing Evelyn so heartbroken, Jade was at a loss for words. She tried to comfort her. "I know you're Dario's cousin and that you've always liked him, but he doesn't think about you in that way. Why are you chasing a man who doesn't care about you at all? Just let it go." "Let go?" Evelyn said. "What right do you have to tell me to let it go? What right do you have to compete with me at all? You've only known him for 2 months, and I've loved him for more than 20 years. It's impossible that you could love him more than I do. You don't deserve him at all.
He's the most perfect man in the world, and no one is good enough for him. I love him, Evelyn thought despairingly. But when I think of him with another woman, I hate him so much. I might not be worthy of him yet, but I love him, and he loves me. That's enough, Jade said. Nonsense, Evelyn said. Dario will never fall in love with you. You must have seduced him. Tell me what you did. She bared her teeth as she came toward Jade, grabbing her shoulder and shoving her hard. If it wasn't for you, Dario would definitely have fallen in love with me. Jade was good at keeping her temper, but this was testing her. But she didn't want to fight with Dario's cousin, so she kept dodging away as Evelyn tried to shove her again and again. That's enough. Dario doesn't like you at all. Even without me, he wouldn't like you, Jade said. Don't be so hung up on him. You should pursue your own happiness. Pursue my own happiness? My happiness is Dario. You ruined my happiness. Evelyn lunged forward and grabbed Jade's wrist, pulling her to the edge of the gazebo. There were 2 shallow steps down and then a steep slope into the river. Evelyn tugged her forward sharply, and they both staggered down the slope and tumbled into the water. I can't believe Evelyn threw me in the river, Jade thought. But it's even more shocking that she landed herself in the river as well. Why would she do that? Could she be suicidal? She pulled off her high heels and struggled to her feet in the thigh-deep water. She waded to the riverbank and hauled herself out, then turned back to extend a helping hand to Evelyn. Episode 372. The River. Quick, grab my hand, Jade called to Evelyn, who was flailing around in the water. Evelyn ignored her, even though she was still near the edge of the river and it would be easy for her to get out. Sneering, she let herself be pulled deeper into the current. But within moments, Evelyn's expression changed to one of fear as she felt the water pulling her down, grasping onto her long hair with greedy fingers. Help, she called. Save me! But she was already out of reach of Jade's hand. Her shout attracted the attention of people mingling in the garden, and they came rushing over. The first one to reach them was Evelyn's grandmother Hilda, an old woman in her 70s or 80s. She let out a scream. Oh my God, what happened? The other onlookers created a chorus of confused discussion. Has someone fallen in the river? I think it's Evelyn Harper. Why is she in the water? Jade waded back into the river, staying where the current was weaker. She wasn't the best swimmer, but it was obvious that Evelyn had no idea what she was doing at all. She had to save her, no matter how much trouble she had caused. There would be even more trouble if Evelyn drowned. Quick, Evelyn, swim for the shore, Hilda shouted. Diane rushed over and took charge, singling out 3 people that she knew were strong swimmers and sending them into the river. She knew that the currents there could be tricky, and in the centre, the water was very deep. Jade tried to reach Evelyn, but she couldn't manage that without going into deeper water. Taking a deep breath, she let the river sweep her farther in. Evelyn was already in the middle of the river, and Jade fought her way through the water to her side. She flung an arm around Evelyn's chest from behind her to pull her toward the bank, but she shook her off. Then, faced with the fear of death, Evelyn began to panic. I'm not ready to die, she thought. I've yet to be with the person I love. Flailing wildly, she threw both arms around Jade and held tight. In her panic, she pinned Jade's arms to her side. Not a strong swimmer to begin with, Jade found herself pushed under the water by Evelyn's weight. Let go so I can help you, she wanted to say, but water kept flooding her mouth. Just as she felt sure she couldn't keep the water from entering her lungs for another second, Diane's people reached them and took hold of Evelyn's arms, directing her to lie back so that they could keep her face above the water. Jade took a huge breath as she surfaced, free of Evelyn's grip. But just as Evelyn was being towed away, she kicked Jade sharply in the chest. All the air exploded from her lungs and Jade sank like a stone. The 3 rescuers were so focused on saving Evelyn that they didn't realize she was in trouble. Fear seeped into Jade's mind just as the water was beginning to invade her lungs. As the water closed over her head, she felt consciousness receding along with the air. She clawed desperately towards the surface, but a searing pain in her calf kept her from succeeding. The cold water was making her muscles cramp, and she was trapped down there in the rushing darkness. On the riverbank, everyone rushed to surround Evelyn, but Diane felt that something wasn't right. She scanned the dark water and saw a stream of bubbles breaking the surface. Hey, you guys, get back in the water. I think there's someone still in there. Everyone's eyes turned to look, and they saw a white hand break the surface for a moment before it was sucked back down. Before they could move, the dark figure of Dario flashed past and dived into the river, swimming strongly downstream. The people on the riverbank gasped, thinking how noble Dario was. It should be me, Lucas thought.
watching with a guilty frown. But Dario was too fast. He always is when it comes to Jade. The current had already swept Jade quite a distance downstream. If there were anyone else, or if Dario had hesitated for just a second, she would have drowned. But Dario was no ordinary person, and he was at her side within seconds. Jade was still trying to swim, but her struggles were becoming weaker. Her legs were cramping, and her breathing was erratic as she kept being pulled under. Her vision was becoming blurry, the cold water constantly filling her mouth, and ears were sending its chill throughout her body. "I'm going to die here," she thought. Her mind kept replaying memories of her and Dario. "How am I only now realizing that he's the most important person in my life?" she thought. "I don't want to die. I want to have a baby with Dario. How can I die before I fulfill his grandfather's wish?" She kept trying to fight the water, but her whole body was heavy with fatigue. Everything was blurring as consciousness slipped away. Then, a light pierced the darkness, and the world came rushing back. "Jade, Jade, wake up. Please, don't leave me." Episode 373, The Rescue. The voice Jade heard was familiar, but the panic and helplessness in it weren't. Is that Dario calling my name? Am I in heaven? She wondered. She was glad that she got to hear his voice one last time before she died. Now she could die without regrets, except that he sounded so terrified. She gasped in a breath. Her head was above the surface, and she gulped desperately at the air. "Jade, can you hear me? Open your eyes." She forced her eyes open, and a handsome face swam into view inches from her own, bobbing up and down in the dark water. "That's it. Stay with me. Don't go back to sleep. I'll have you out of here in no time." His voice had lost some of its anxious edge now that she was conscious again. Jade's whole body was shuddering from the cold of the water, but there were warm arms wrapped around her. "Dario, is that you?" "It's me. I came to save you." His messy hair was falling into his panicked eyes, but he kept his face composed as he quickly towed Jade to the bank, his movements smooth and efficient. The watchers on the bank applauded him for being so calm in the face of danger, but he knew how terrified he had been when he jumped into the river. Seeing Jade go under had been like having his heart ripped from his chest. In his 30 years, he had never been so scared. He was still afraid, even as he pulled her ashore. "What if I ever lose her?" he thought. "What if I hadn't gotten to her in time? I was wrong to leave her side even for a moment. I have to stay with her to protect her and never let her get hurt." Jade coughed up the mouthfuls of water she had swallowed and looked at Dario with shining eyes. "He saved me," she thought. "My whole world was going dark, and he came to me like a bright light." All the reporters who were there to cover Walter's birthday party saw Dario's heroics and were quick to snap pictures of him carrying Jade out of the river. They also kept an ear open for the gossip among the guests. "I heard that Dario has never had a girlfriend." "That's right. He's never been seen with a woman, and now he is, saving a famous actress. I wonder what their relationship is." Jade Winslet has become very popular recently. Do you think all the lead roles she's been getting have anything to do with Mr. Foster? I don't think so. She's the new face of Adele Q, and Diane invited her here personally, so of course Dario rushed to help her. She's his sister's guest. The crowd on the bank discussed this animatedly, but two among them didn't join in and just watched in seething anger. Bruce and his wife Ivana. When Bruce saw Dario carrying the wet Jade out of the river, his eyes became colder and colder. Seeing Jade hugging Dario tightly, he felt a surge of jealousy. He wanted to immediately separate the two of them. Ivana, on the other hand, would happily have clapped and cheered at the spectacle. That is, until she noticed that her husband's gaze was fixed on Jade. With a surge of fury, she thought, ever since we arrived, his attention has been on her. What sort of charm does Jade have that I don't? She snorted. Dario actually saved her? Come on, Bruce. We don't want to watch this farce. Let's go inside. She pulled Bruce by the hand, but he resisted, his eyes still fixed on Jade. I'm the one that's married to Bruce, Ivana thought in anger. But Jade still manages to sneak into his dreams. Who does she think she is? Evelyn, meanwhile, was recovering from her own near-death experience in the river. Her family all crowded around her, expressing their concern. They always treated her so well, but it wasn't enough. Her gaze immediately sought out Dario. When she saw him sprint to Jade's rescue, her heart went even colder than her shivering body. Dario jumped into the river without hesitation to save Jade, she thought. I was also in the water. Was I not important enough to save? I've sacrificed so much for him, but I still don't have his heart. Why didn't they just let me die? Living is so tiring." Evelyn's grandmother saw her expression and felt her heart ache. She hurried to her granddaughter's side to comfort her. Meanwhile, Walter could only watch nervously from the veranda.
"Diane, go and see how Jade's doing. Check if my family is safe."
Diane hushed him, afraid he would give away the relationship between Dario and Jade to the reporters. She whispered, "Don't worry, Granddad. I'll go and check. You need to take care of your guests. Don't let this party get out of hand." Although Walter was worried, he still nodded. What Diane had said made sense. He called the guests back to the hall. Episode 374. The Accusation. Diane rushed back down to the riverbank, where Dario was still cradling Jade in his arms, like he would never let her go. "Put her down," she said. "This place is crawling with reporters. If they write anything about you, Jade will be the one who suffers." She knew that the only reason Dario was holding off on publicly announcing their relationship was because of Jade's career. She'd only just started out, and talk of favoritism could derail her future. Sharon came up to them, her eyes full of worry. "Don't worry, Dario. We can look after Jade now. Go and get into some dry clothes before you catch a chill." Many of the reporters and guests were still milling about on the riverbank, not wanting to leave in case the show continued. Sharon frowned at Dario, saying, "I know you're worried about Jade, but let your family help. Look at all these people making guesses about your relationship. They even took pictures. Won't it affect you both?" Diane added, "Why were you so impulsive? Now that everyone's seen, are you going to go public about you and Jade?" Dario stared intently at Jade, whose face was deathly pale. His eyes had never left her for a moment. His expression darkened. He wiped the excess water from his forehead and said seriously, "She's my life." He hadn't thought about the consequences before diving into the river. He had just needed to get Jade out of the water. "No matter the price," he thought, "I will never let anything happen to her." Jade smiled as she heard Dario declare that she was his life. Sharon and Diane looked stunned, not used to Dario expressing such emotion. They knew him as a very reserved man, but when it came to Jade, all his walls came down. "Dario, put me down, I'm fine now." Jade saw that everyone around was discussing them and quickly extricated herself from Dario's arms. "He risked his life to save me," she thought fondly. "I'll never forget this." "What exactly happened? Why did you and Evelyn both run into the river?" Sharon asked. Seeing that Jade was still shivering, David draped his coat around her shoulders, and Diane hugged her and rubbed her arms. She wanted nothing more than to throw herself into Dario's warm embrace, but the reporters were still watching. "Thank you, David," Jade said gratefully. "Don't thank me. Hurry up and change your clothes. Don't freeze," he said. David looked at Evelyn, who was surrounded by her family. Then his gaze shifted to Monica, sitting beside her, and he felt a stabbing pain in his heart. Evelyn's grandmother Hilda bustled over to them with a furious expression. "Why did you push my granddaughter?" she demanded, pointing an accusing finger at Jade. Everyone gaped at her. She was the matriarch of the Harper family, and her words carried a lot of weight. How could she say such a thing? The guests, who had begun to drift back to the house, all turned back and began to discuss this new revelation in shocked whispers. What? It was Jade who pushed Evelyn into the river? That can't be right. Why would Jade do that? Is there a feud between them? She actually pushed her? Maybe it was an accident. Could Hilda be wrong? Surely not. She's such a reputable figure. She can't be lying, can she? Jade turned pale. How can I be blamed for this? She thought. Everyone believes Hilda because she looks so matronly and sophisticated, but she's a bold-faced liar. David saw Dario's face turn icy with hostility and quickly jumped in before he exploded. Hilda, you mustn't talk nonsense. Jade's my friend, and I can vouch for her character. She'd never do something like that. There was an uproar. First, Dario had saved her, and now David was sticking up for her. Who was Jade to have so many important people on her side? She must be more than she appeared to be. Hilda ignored David. I saw it with my own eyes. This woman tried to kill my granddaughter. How can that be true? David said. Wasn't Jade in the river too? So, how could she have pushed Evelyn in? I think you must have an ulterior motive for making these accusations. He kept his tone polite, but his question hit home. Hilda pounded her walking stick on the ground. What do you mean by that? Are you accusing me of lying? This is all a trick that Winslet woman has concocted to win your sympathy. Isn't it obvious that she can swim? She knew that even if she jumped in the river, she wouldn't be in any danger. Episode 375. Was it a jump or a push? Jade, what exactly is going on? Sharon asked nervously. It was Walter's 80th birthday and the place was crawling with media. While they wanted to avoid any hint of a scandal, with the relationship between the Fosters and the Harpers already strained, she was afraid that things were going to get worse and that the two families could soon become enemies. I didn't push her, said Jade vehemently. She jumped. Didn't you see me in the river with her? Isn't it obvious I jumped in to save her? She bit her lower lip and looked straight into Sharon's eyes. When Jade remembered how Evelyn had ruthlessly kicked her in the river, causing her to sink, her heart filled with indignation. Surely it was clear to everyone that she had tried to save her, although she had failed in the attempt. She didn't deserve to be framed like this.
Why would Evelyn jump in the river?
Interjected Isabel accusingly.
And if you didn't feel guilty, why did you jump in to save her?
Jade knew that Dario's grandmother didn't like her and had always been against her, but she didn't need to help outsiders frame her. She felt even more wronged. Dario pursed his lips and his eyes became sharper. Glancing coldly at Evelyn, he said bluntly, I think we should ask the person involved. Under that piercing gaze, Evelyn began to tremble. When Dario looked at Jade, it was with tenderness, as though he only had eyes for her. But with Evelyn, there was not even the slightest trace of emotion.
Why?
Evelyn wondered.
Why is he so cruel to me? He's sticking a dagger in my heart, and now he wants to interrogate me because of another woman.
The sense of injustice brought tears to her eyes, and she clenched her fists to control her emotions. The bystanders were intrigued with the unfolding drama and were speculating on what kind of relationship the three people had.
Evelyn, tell Grandma the truth,
said Hilda, with feeling as she stroked Evelyn's cold hand.
Grandma will stand up for you. Who does this young Foster fellow think he is, trying to bully my granddaughter? She thought. And who's that Jade character? Just a two-bit actress, not a patch on our Evelyn. It's time to teach these brats a lesson.
Hearing her words, everyone turned to Evelyn expectantly, holding their breath. The crowd fell silent and the atmosphere became almost oppressive. Let me see, broke in Ivana in a strange sing-song tone. Some people just love to grab the headlines. This actor here is one of the best at playing these games. Jade, stop acting now. Admit it. You pushed her, didn't you? Although she was her cousin, Ivana had no intention of helping Jade. It pleased her to see Jade feeling uncomfortable. She raised her eyebrows and watched Bruce closely. Although he was still looking at Jade, his face now showed contempt, probably because he had seen her being affectionate with Dario. It's time for Bruce to show his hand and confirm that he and Jade are finished, she thought. Our happy life is just beginning. Bruce was indeed observing Jade, who was drenched. She looked embarrassed, but he only had eyes for how her wet clothes clung to her body, emphasizing her full bust, slim waist, and perky backside. Water droplets ran down her smooth calves and onto her delicate ankles. Enraptured by her curves, Bruce realized he was getting aroused. He hurriedly looked away and felt his throat dry up. It felt strange to once again feel this desire for her ignited in his body, and he was embarrassed in case anyone had noticed. At least the Fosters were bound to reject her after this fresh scandal, he thought. Smiling at this, he turned away and hurried off to hide in a washroom. He didn't want to make a fool of himself in front of so many people. Ivana had not noticed his situation, obsessed as she was with Jade. You look like a drowned rat, she crowed to herself. Let's see how you show off now. But her glory was short-lived. Dario stared intently at Evelyn with dark eyes that seemed to bore right through her. He decided to ask her a question to give her a chance. If she replied honestly, he might let her go. If she dared to oppose him, then he would show no mercy. Every inch of the Fosters' villa grounds was monitored by CCTV. If he wanted to know the truth, it would be a piece of cake. However, outsiders didn't know the location of the surveillance cameras because they were well hidden. He deliberately asked Evelyn, "Tell me what happened exactly." Sharon was observing Evelyn closely to see how she answered. If it turned out that Jade was responsible, then she would definitely not be soft on her. But if this was just a misunderstanding, then she did not want to malign her future daughter-in-law. Her eyes turned doubtfully from Evelyn to Jade. Comparing them like this, it seemed that Jade had been in greater danger. The current had pulled her to the lower part of the river, and if Dario hadn't leapt in to save her, she could have even lost her life. Because Evelyn had been rescued so quickly, she'd only swallowed a few mouthfuls of water. It was not a big deal. If Jade had pushed her into the river and then put her own life in danger, well, that didn't make sense.
Evelyn, don't be afraid. Just tell everyone what happened,
Evelyn's father said. He angrily glared at Jade and then hugged his daughter. Episode 376. Accusations Fly. Evelyn's mother Pam was very upset. She was dismayed that her daughter would be facing such a trial right after being discharged from the hospital. How could she be so unlucky? Evelyn bit her lip and looked at Jade before saying something that shocked everyone. "Miss Winslet, I have no beef with you. Why would you do such a thing to me?" She was clearly implying that Jade had pushed her.
Evelyn, think carefully before making accusations, said David. Are you sure you didn't slip accidentally?
Although he hadn't known Jade for long, he believed she was a person of integrity. Evelyn, on the other hand, was extremely shrewd and scheming. When she was younger, she would deliberately fall down just to get Dario's attention. David had never enjoyed spending time with her. "I fell into the water. I didn't lose my memory, Mr. Swan. Anyway, I've already said everything I wanted to say." She clenched her fist tightly and looked at him with hatred. "Why do they all want to help that woman, especially David?" she thought. "Doesn't he have a crush on my elder sister? Why isn't he helping me? What kind of spell has Jade cast on people, getting all the men to pursue her? She thinks she's so clever." Dario's handsome face had turned frosty. He looked at Diane, who immediately understood and pulled Jade away. "All right," she said. "No matter what happened here, the two of them need to change into dry clothes first. Otherwise, they'll catch a cold, and the matter will only get more serious. Mum, I'll take them indoors to change." "Okay." Sharon was confused. What was going on? Diane wanted to lead Jade away, but Hilda seemed unwilling to let her go, blocking her way with her walking stick.
"Wait a minute. This woman pushed my granddaughter into the river, and now you're just taking her away? What's going on?"
Tensions heightened again. Dario, who was holding back, so Donald, who had been silent all this time, stepped forward.
"Don't worry, ma'am," he said. "This happened on our property and we'll take care of it. Just relax. The girls really need to get out of those wet things before we can discuss it."
After these reasonable words, Hilda couldn't stop them again without looking cruel. David, ever the peacemaker, raised his voice.
"Listen up, everyone. It was just an accident. Let's go back to the hall where there are plenty of refreshments waiting."
As the two women who had fallen into the water were led toward the house, Hilda laid her hand on Evelyn's arm.
"Don't catch a cold, and don't worry, I'm behind you all the way."
She cast a fierce glance at the meddlesome David before turning her attention back to her granddaughter. "I'm fine now, Grandma," said Evelyn, feigning weakness. "Don't blame Miss Winslet too much." Her words were designed to gain sympathy from the onlookers. Then she turned her tear-filled eyes toward Dario and pretended to be generous. "Dario, I don't think Miss Winslet did it on purpose. I'm sorry to add to your pain." Dario didn't wait for her to finish speaking before he coldly brushed past her. Spotting Lucas, he barked an order.
"Examine all the surveillance footage in this place, immediately." "Yes, boss, I'm on it."
Lucas rushed to the monitoring room as fast as he could, while Dario strode off in silence. Watching him leave, Evelyn felt as if her heart were being torn apart. He said he needed to check the cameras. Does he still not believe me? Does he think I'm so untrustworthy? She wondered. Meanwhile, Sharon was trying to reassure Hilda. "Ma'am, don't be so anxious. There's surely been some misunderstanding. Dario had no reason to push Evelyn away." Although Sharon had only met Jade 3 times, she trusted her son's judgment. If my son chose her, she thought, then she would never be the type of person to do such a thing. Besides, she was also in the river. We need to find out what exactly happened here. When Hilda heard Sharon protecting Jade like this, she became even more furious.
"Misunderstanding? You dare to tell me that this is just a misunderstanding? Let me tell you something. If the Fosters don't give me a reasonable explanation, then don't blame me for the consequences."
Hilda had quite a reputation in New York, and she was not going to allow herself to be bullied. Diane intervened. "Please don't get too excited. Let's go to the main hall and have a seat. Dario has already sent people to investigate the monitors. We'll soon know the truth." Sharon's beautiful face was lined with worry. "Please go and check on Jade," she said. Donald saw that his wife was worried, and his heart ached. He immediately patted her back to comfort her. There. Don't worry, don't frown. Frowning doesn't look good." Sharon turned and stared at him. She sighed helplessly. "What do you think is going on? Why did those two suddenly fall into the river? Evelyn's even accusing Jade of pushing her, but I don't believe her. She's one determined lady. Do you still think she's trying to get Dario back? Episode 377. Mine for 5 years. Donald held Sharon in his arms while looking back at the river through narrowed eyes.
"Don't worry. I believe our son can handle it. You should trust him," he said.
"Yes, but I hope our family doesn't cause any more trouble," she said helplessly. "Dad's health isn't so good. I'll take him back to the house." Jade had been taken directly to Dario's room on the 6th floor, and the maids had been given strict instructions not to allow anyone to enter. Meanwhile, Evelyn was brought to a guest room. Just as Jade was wondering if it was appropriate for her to be in that room, she felt a pair of hands on her. Dario was already there, waiting for her. Before she could say anything, he quickly removed her wet clothes and underwear. He also stripped off his own clothes, picked her up, and carried her to the bedroom, where he had already run the bath. He got into the tub with her and washed her hair, carefully removing all hair clips. Then, he lifted her from the tub, wrapped her in a fluffy bathrobe, and began to towel dry her hair. "Don't worry about me. Dry yourself," Jade said shyly.
"If you don't keep still, I'll warm you up in another way." He held her wrists in one hand and continued to rub her with the other.
"Warm me up? How?"
She was wondering what he meant when she felt a familiar hardness pressing against her back. After that, she let him carry on with no further comments. He switched to the hairdryer and gently blew her hair dry, gazing at her with compassion. When he had finished, he turned to put the hairdryer away. Jade looked at his muscled back, and her eyes became teary. She hugged him tightly from behind as she leaned against him. His sturdy back made her feel secure. He was like the whole world to her.
"Dario, you're so good to me."
She clung tightly to him and refused to let go, tears flowing down her cheeks. She'd been afraid that she would die in the river and would never see him again. But every time she'd been scared in the time they'd been together, he had appeared at her side, bringing light into her darkness. Dario turned around. He held her fragile body tightly in his arms, as if afraid that she might disappear any second. While his eyes were full of love, they also betrayed a hint of fear. He lifted her face by her chin and forced her to look at him. "Who put you in danger?" Seeing his anger, Jade averted her eyes and whispered, "I jumped in to save her." His fury became even more intense. He picked her up and threw her onto the bed as if he was punishing her. Then he bit her earlobe until she let out a muffled whimper. She was not the only one with fears. He was also afraid. When he had seen her fall into the river, he had felt his heart sink down with her. He gripped her chin again and looked at her with pain in his eyes. "I'm warning you, you're not to do this thing again. Do you know how much danger you were in? Our family is so big, it's not your responsibility to save them all. What will I do if anything happens to you? You're my whole life." The more he spoke, the stiffer his face became and the fiercer his voice. Knowing that he was really worried about her, Jade immediately put her arms around his neck and kissed him on the lips. "Don't be angry. I know I was wrong," she said, lowering her head. "The water was so deep, yet you still jumped in. Didn't you think about the consequences? If I hadn't been there, you might have—" He felt a sharp pain in his heart when he spoke of this. He had never been as afraid as he had been that day. He hugged her even tighter. While outwardly calm, there was actually panic in his voice. "Promise me you won't scare me like this again? You mustn't do anything to hurt yourself. Do you understand? Since that day 5 years ago, you've belonged to me alone, so don't forget. I forbid you to die. Even if death comes calling, I'll chase him away." Jade was touched by his words. It was the first time she had seen such a panicked expression on his face, and the first time she had felt his body trembling in fear. And she was the cause of all these emotions. A questioning look flashed across her eyes. "Dario, why did you say that 5 years ago? What does this have to do with 5 years ago?" "Because we knew each other 5 years ago." He lowered his head and kissed her lips. This time Jade was even more puzzled. "What? Did we meet 5 years ago? How's that possible?" She searched her memory but couldn't remember meeting him back then. Besides, if she'd seen him before, how could she have forgotten? "You'll find out sooner or later," he said mysteriously, kissing her face again. He remembered her from 5 years before, but she had never seen his face. Episode 378. A Warm Embrace. Jade blinked, wondering if Dario had remembered wrongly. How could she have met him years earlier? Before she could figure it out, he had rolled on top of her and said domineeringly, "Next time you dare to do anything that puts you in danger, you'll be in real trouble. I don't care what other people do, I only care about you." Jade nodded quietly like a kitten. She rubbed her head against his chest and smiled sweetly. "Okay,
I'll listen to you. Next time someone falls in the river, I'll ask someone else to save them." Then she raised her eyes and stared at him. She tugged on the sleeves of his bathrobe and said nervously, "Dario, about your cousin, I really didn't do it." She was afraid he didn't believe her. She didn't care if the whole world misunderstood her, but she could not abide by if Dario didn't trust her. She jumped by herself, "You—" Before she could finish, he suddenly lowered his head and bit her lips. Jade felt the pain and bit him back. She pushed him away unhappily. "What did you do that for?" he said angrily, rubbing his lips. "That hurt. Of course I know you didn't push her. Do you really imagine I would suspect you?" His face was cold. His deep voice sounded impatient and angry. Then, when Jade least expected it, he gently kissed her. His kiss was deep and intoxicating, as though he were carefully kissing a great treasure. She didn't resist. Instead, she put her arms around his neck and kissed him back. She felt her body temperature rise as Dario's hands caressed her skin and her breathing grew faster. Locked in their passionate embrace, she suddenly remembered where she was. As she realized how many people were downstairs, her shyness returned and she pushed him away. "It's still daytime," she said, panting and drawing her bathrobe around her. He smiled and whispered in her ear, "Do you mean we can do this at night?" He knew why she was worried, but was reluctant to abandon those red lips. "I didn't mean that. Why are you thinking about that?" "Because you're beside me. It's your fault for being so seductive." Then he added, in a more serious tone, "Jade, no matter what happens, I will always choose to believe you. Do you understand?" She found his forcefulness irresistibly charming. In comparison, she felt like a child who just wanted to snuggle up to him and never leave his side. "Okay, I understand." She beamed and leaned into his embrace. "Don't worry, I'll never let anyone hurt you or misunderstand you. I know you did nothing wrong." It still pained him to think about what had happened at the river. "I know, you're so good to me. I don't know how to thank you." She had never imagined that there would be anyone other than her grandmother that she would feel such gratitude toward. "Thank me with your body tonight," he whispered in her ear. She was straddling him, kissing him through her tears, afraid that he would get up and leave. But the fire she had ignited in him was not so easily extinguished. He grasped her waist and whispered, "I never want to leave." "Don't you need to go downstairs?" she asked curiously. She wondered if it looked suspicious that the two of them had disappeared at the same time. What was more, he had dived into the river to save her. Surely this would be all over the news the next day. "What's the rush? It's still early. We can go down later." Dario had ordered some carrot and ginger soup to be brought to the room, and together they finished every drop. Then they lay in each other's arms. Feeling the warmth of his chest beneath her head, Jade had never felt happier. She wanted to stay there forever, basking in his goodness as he gazed at her with love in his eyes. The guests had already returned to the villa. Only Monica and David remained in the woods. Monica was turning to leave when David pulled her back. "What are you doing?" she said with disgust. "Let go of me now." David stared at her. His eyes had never been as scary as they were at that moment, and his expression had never been so serious. He blocked her way. "Monica, have you and Evelyn not had enough of this? It's time to stop. Don't go against Jade. It's useless. Whatever happens, Dario won't take your sister back." "What are you talking about?" she asked. "Do you think we're behind all this? It was Jade, pretending to be so innocent, who pushed my sister into the water when she wasn't looking." Monica rolled her eyes at him, but in her heart, she wondered why he was helping Jade. David thought her words were a little strange. Had she really not planned all of this? He began to have doubts. Episode 379. Let's watch a video. "Monica, that's enough. Do you really mean to say that this all has nothing to do with you? You really put in a lot of effort for your sister. I'm really disappointed in you, you know? I always thought that you were just a little willful but had a kind heart, but now..." He frowned and looked at her with a strange look in his eyes. His expression planted doubts in her mind. She wondered how Evelyn had actually fallen in. David seemed to think her sister had planned it herself. "Get out of my way," she said in disgust, turning to push past him. Her coldness was like a knife in his heart. "Tell me, what will it take for you to accept me?" he shouted at the top of his lungs. "Why are you all circling around Dario? What's so good about him? He'll only give his heart to the one he loves. As for the rest of you, he wouldn't give you a second glance if you were bleeding to death." Yes, David knew Dario all too well. Standing beside him day after day, he saw clearly how people gave themselves to him. Evelyn, for example. But Dario was like a porcupine, stabbing everyone who came near him because he could only give his heart to one person. "Monica was my porcupine," he thought. Her spine kept pricking me until I was covered in blood, yet she still wanted to stretch out her arms and hug Dario. "So what?" she retorted. "Even if I were bleeding to death, I would never fall in love with you, so stop following me. Here's a question for you. Why are you all circling around that woman? What's so good about her? She relied on Dario to get where she is." It had taken Monica 5 years to achieve her own success. She had not relied on the Harpers' influence at all. She had even changed her name so as not to depend on her family. However, Jade had only debuted 2 months previously and was already the bee's knees. This is simply unbelievable. If it wasn't for Dario pulling strings, how could she have achieved so much? Monica thought. David stared intently into her eyes and said with certainty, "No, Monica, you're wrong. She relied on her own ability." Monica was shocked. She stared at him and smiled coldly. "Haha, I really don't know what kind of black magic that woman has worked on you. Each and every one of you has been bewitched. Jade's so clever." Her eyes were full of contempt. Then she hurried away, leaving David alone in the forest. He sighed helplessly. He had used all his strength and had nothing left. What did he have to do for her to fall in love with him? Meanwhile, the Harpers and Fosters had gathered in the guest room, where they surrounded Evelyn, who had changed her clothes. She seemed calm and relaxed until Lucas appeared. He was holding a USB stick with the surveillance camera footage. She knew what it would show, and her face turned pale. When Hilda saw Lucas enter, she said arrogantly, "Have you investigated it thoroughly?" He nodded. "Hurry up and give us an explanation. That woman actually tried to kill my granddaughter. I want to call the police immediately." Lucas only glanced at her coldly. Following Dario's instructions, he addressed Evelyn impassively. "Miss Harper, the surveillance cameras captured everything that happened by the river just now. Do you want me to play the video for everyone? It's up to you." "What do you mean?" She nervously pulled her jacket more tightly around herself. Then she looked around, searching for that familiar figure. But she did not see him. "Where's Dario?" Because Mr. Foster was also in the water, he's now resting in his room. He's entrusted this small matter to me, so shall we show everyone the video? If you don't give your permission, I'll just destroy it. Evelyn looked at his inscrutable face. She didn't understand what he was getting at. Was he playing mind games with her? And where was Dario? He was showing his contempt for her by not showing up. Why doesn't he come here in person? Evelyn bit her lower lip in determination. Hilda agreed. "That's right. My granddaughter almost died, yet he's still resting in his room? This is too much. Go and fetch him." Lucas remained calm. He didn't have the patience to waste his breath on them. "Ma'am, I've already explained that Mr. Foster has left this matter to me. If Miss Harper agrees, we'll take a look at the video." We all know what we'll see," said Hilda agitatedly. "That woman who pushed my granddaughter just now. All right, where did you hide her? I want to call the police and have her arrested immediately." She scanned the room for Jade's figure. She refused to let her go so easily. "You can't make accusations like that, ma'am. You have to see the evidence first," Lucas said, disdain flickering at the edges of his mouth. As he spoke, he pulled out a thin laptop, set it on the coffee table, and inserted the USB. Just as he was about to press the play button, Evelyn became very nervous. Seeing that he was really going to play the video, she rushed forward and closed the notebook. She looked a little flustered. "That's enough. There's no need to see the video. To be honest, I accidentally fell in the river." Everyone present was stunned to hear her confession. Only Lucas maintained a calm expression, as though everything were going according to plan. If she had told the truth earlier, Dario would not have hated her so much. "Evelyn, what nonsense are you spouting? What are you afraid of? Don't worry, Grandma will protect you." Hilda looked at her anxiously, afraid that Evelyn was embarrassed to expose Jade. Episode 380. The Camera Never Lies. Hilda pointed at Lucas angrily. "Show me the video from the surveillance camera. This is important evidence. It will show what Jade really did, and I can give it to the police." Lucas raised his eyebrows and glanced questioningly at Evelyn as he said, "Miss Harper, don't be so rash. Are you sure you want to involve the police? If they come, I'm afraid things won't look so simple." Meanwhile, Sharon believed Jade. Even though she hadn't seen the video, she knew that there must be some misunderstanding. But she didn't think that Evelyn would deliberately frame Jade either, so she felt that she should watch to learn what really happened. "Lucas, why don't you show it to all of us? That way, we can see for ourselves if Jade was telling the truth. I think this surveillance will give us an answer," Sharon suggested. "Yes, let me see how she hurt my granddaughter," Hilda said indignantly. During the entire debate, Monica had been watching quietly. When she looked at Evelyn, she frowned.
Since Mrs. Harper insists on seeing it, then I guess we should show it to everyone,
Lucas said slowly, and started to press play. Evelyn had been getting more and more nervous. She grabbed Lucas's hand to stop him and looked at them all with embarrassment. She knew very well what happened to her if he showed the surveillance video. After a long pause, she said in a low voice, "Actually, I accidentally tripped and fell into the water. Yes, Jade was also in the water, but she was trying to save me." Lucas glanced at Evelyn coolly and closed the computer. It was obvious that there was no longer a need to show the video.
She should be glad that she finally told the truth, otherwise the consequences might have been disastrous for her, he thought.
Dario had told him that if Evelyn kept refusing to tell the truth, he could use whatever means necessary to clear Jade's name.
"Evelyn, if you didn't push her, why did you lie about it?"
Monica asked coldly, having kept her mouth shut the entire time. She gave her a menacing look, and Evelyn shrank back and wrapped her arms around herself tightly. She kept biting her lower lip and didn't dare to speak. The room fell into an awkward silence. Sharon evaluated the situation and quickly stepped in to smooth things over.
"I think Evelyn might have been frightened," she explained. "But now everyone knows that this was a misunderstanding and that she's fine. Evelyn, you stay here and rest. If you want, I can have someone to take you home."
Hilda, however, didn't believe any of it. She insisted on getting justice for her granddaughter.
"No, I was by the river and clearly saw Miss Winslet push her in," she said. "Evelyn, why are you defending her now?"
She really didn't understand.
"Evelyn had already told me what had happened, so why has she changed her story?" she wondered.
Lucas said bluntly,
"Mrs. Harper, I know you think that's what you saw because that's what she told you. If you don't believe us, you can watch the video yourself. In the video, it's clear that you're standing far away. It would have been impossible for you to see the details. You can't hear what's being said in the video, but I promise you, there is more to the story. If you watch the video, you'll realize exactly what happened to Miss Winslet. Then your granddaughter will have to face the consequences."
"Lucas, that's enough. Don't be rude. I don't think we need you here any longer. You can leave," Sharon said sternly. Lucas knew he was only obliged to follow Dario's orders. Sharon had no right to tell him what to do. However, she was Dario's mother. He would show her some respect. Since the matter had already been resolved, there really was nothing left for him to do.
"Yes, ma'am, I'll leave now,"
he said, and walked from the room. After that, Sharon smiled weakly and said to Hilda, "Mrs. Harper, I think there must still be some misunderstanding. You must have misinterpreted what you thought you saw. They were probably all just standing by the river and chatting, and Evelyn tripped and fell in the water. Then Jade tried to help her out of the river. That's all. It's a bit unreasonable for you to keep accusing others if the video shows what really happened." Hilda realized that they all agreed and saw that Evelyn didn't want the video shown, so she let it go. But she wasn't giving up. She pulled Evelyn aside to question her.
"Evelyn, just tell me exactly what happened."
Evelyn was about to lose it, and now her grandmother kept pestering her. She looked exhausted and pale. She collapsed on the couch and said weakly, "Grandma, I really did fall into the river by accident. Right now I just want to rest. I'm so sorry about any trouble I caused." No matter how often Hilda asked, Evelyn continued to give this answer, so Hilda finally gave up. Monica raised an eyebrow and gave Evelyn a complicit glance. Then she switched to a gentle smile and turned to the others and said, "Everyone, it's been a busy afternoon, and you all must be tired. You should go and get some rest before the banquet."
"But,"
Hilda said worriedly, "Hush, today is Grandpa Foster's birthday, and the banquet will start soon. Don't worry, I'll take care of my little sister." Monica assured them and ushered them out the door. In the guest room, only the two sisters were left. Monica's face immediately darkened. The atmosphere became tense. Monica closed the door and locked it, then turned around and coldly looked at Evelyn. She had always treated Evelyn as if she really was her own sister, but Evelyn had never treated her as a big sister. She had monopolized their father's love, and now she tried to use her. Again. Monica raised her slender hands and applauded slowly. Her face was full of scorn. "You were really good. As your big sister, I have to admire that performance." Evelyn avoided her eyes and asked nervously, "What do you mean? I don't understand." "What do I mean? They've all left. You don't have to play dumb now. You called me and asked me to get Grandma to the forest because you knew she would back up your story. How dare you use me like that?" Monica said angrily. When she'd helped Evelyn drug Dario, she'd done it because she cared about her sister. But Evelyn hadn't cared about her feelings and put all the blame on her. She hadn't taken any responsibility. Now, Evelyn had used her again.